Greetings, adventurers. You're listening to The Quiet Journeys of Professor Atwood with me, Professor Atwood. I'm glad you're here, and I can't wait to tell you about my latest journey. Don't worry, it's a safe space. I'll handle all the danger for you. I designed these stories to help you relax, chill anxiety, and go to sleep. Maybe they'll even put a smile on your face, even if it's a sleepy smile. So please, settle in, relax, and prepare to quietly drift off with me to parts known, unknown, and even some places in between. Comfortable? Very well. Let's get underway. Good evening, adventurers. I hope you're doing well. I also hope you're all cozy and settled in because tonight we're going to be doing something a little different. Yes, tonight, to get you in the holiday spirit, we're going to be taking a break from our regularly scheduled adventures and the story of how I faced Professor P and his nefarious science challenges. Tonight, I'm going to tell you about how I was called to Christmastown, Bradley's hometown, to solve the mystery of strange goings-on at the Christmastown Toy Store, which during the holiday season was hampering sales and lowering spirits. So for Christmastown, it was some serious business indeed. But this story will be extra special for another reason. It is also the tale of how I met Bradley and how he became my assistant. But before I tell you this special Christmas tale, first I want to talk to you about a few things, especially for our listeners, both new and old. We're getting to the end of another year of adventures for all of us, and we just want to thank you for all your support and for being here listening to our stories. It's much appreciated, and we are also warmed by all the positive comments the show has received over the years. We love doing the show, and we are very pleased so many of you are receiving such comfort and joy from it. Remember, there are two types of shows in the podcast high-speed show feed. There are the regular episodes, such as what you're listening to right now, and Professor Atwood's Sleepscapes to give you more adventures per month. These Sleepscapes are pulled directly from my adventures with all the music and sounds we collect on our journeys. We then remix and remaster them and make them longer so you can create your own adventure in your mind as you settle in and drift off to sleep. And as per the schedule, there will only be one episode, well, this one, dropping in the month of December due to holiday schedules and last-minute winter experiment complications. However, this is a rather lengthy origin story filled with Christmas and holiday spirit, toys, and mysterious goings-on at the Christmastown Toy Store, so it will be a two-parter, with the second half dropping in the first week of January 2025. I know, we're almost in the future. Anyway, as always, don't forget to rate and review the show and maybe post about the show, as that's how other adventurers find us. And since it is the holidays, it's not too late to order some Professor Atwood merchandise or make a year-end donation to the show. Just go to whitecatentertainment.com. It is much appreciated. You can also find subscription and Patreon options there too for a little bit of extra White Cat Entertainment content every single month. All right, let's get to the story. A bit of a flashback, if you will. Now, as you remember, Christmastown is not at the North Pole, but it's close. The most northern city on the map is Longyearbyen. Longyearbyen is located in the Norwegian archipelago of Svalbard, which is 3 hours from Oslo by plane and about 650 miles from the North Pole. Christmastown is further north still by about another 100 miles. And as you can imagine, it is not easy to get to. You kind of have to fly to Longyearbyen in Norway, which, as I said, is the most northern city, sort of. Then, depending on the weather, you need to either take a helicopter or a snowmobile to get to Christmastown from there. But there are also times of the year when the weather is so inclement you can't get there at all until the storm passes. Now, I would have to have contingencies for both. If I could grab a helicopter there, great. But if I had to take a snowmobile 100 miles, then so be it. I had a customized one waiting for me, of course, with a heater, a larger gas tank, a larger engine giving me more speed, and of course, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. But let me refresh your memory about Christmastown. It's a town from a bygone era. It's like walking into a living, breathing Norman Rockwell painting. Every building in town is decorated for Christmas. There are lights everywhere, on the trees, in the town square, and of course on the hotel. There are also some adventurous tourists who make it there every year as well, and that's part of the town's economy, so it is encouraged. But what's also fascinating is that Christmastown is nestled in a hidden valley with hot springs underneath, so it never gets too cold, even with snow on the ground. Basically, it's a northeastern Christmas every year, with temperatures never getting below 30 degrees. Also, when you have a whole town filled with Christmas spirit, with lights and smiles everywhere you look, it just feels warmer. Between the hot springs and the spirit of human kindness, it feels like you're wrapped in a warm hug the entire time you're there. Now, this trip that I'm about to tell you about was before I was asked to find their missing power source, the Christmas star, so I was still pretty much unaware of it, as they kept the power source of the town secret, until, of course, years later, Bradley called and asked for my help in retrieving it after it had been stolen. Now, I didn't really know what powered the town at the time, and I was definitely curious about it, but no one really volunteered that information, and it seemed like they wanted to keep their secret, so at the time, I didn't press things. The Christmas star was remarkable and ran on a form of a piezoelectric technology where the tiny crystals would harvest the kinetic energy and basically good vibes in the town and convert it to electrical energy to power the town, similar to my Emomo engine. But anyway, back to the current story, which is also a flashback origin story. So, things started with a phone call from the previous mayor, Mayor Crinkle. Not Kringle, but yes, Mayor Crinkle also looked like Santa Claus, as was a prerequisite for any mayor of Christmastown. And that went for female mayors as well, who had to look like Mrs. Claus. Anyway, Mayor Crinkle and I, we'd known each other from a while back. We used to teach at the same university, but that's a story for another time. So as I spoke with Mayor Crinkle, he said nervously that there were some strange things happening at the Christmastown Toy Store. And of course he added that due to the time of year it was a major issue and could have, implications for the annual Christmastown Cookie Festival as well. Well, then I asked what kind of strange things were occurring, and he hesitated for a moment. He said it would be better if I just saw for myself. I then asked about the local authorities. He then said Constable Dan was just as stumped as the rest of them, and that they all felt I was their only hope. Well, as you know, I always try to help when I can, and Christmastown this time of year, with the annual Christmas Cookie Festival, well, you just couldn't beat it for getting into the holiday spirit. I said yes, of course, I would be happy to help, but I would need a few days to get there. Maybe more, depending on the weather. Mayor Crinkle said he understood, but to hurry. Things must be serious indeed. Now, interestingly, I was lab assistantless at the time. I tried a few out, and they were all quite good, but I never really clicked with any of them. It's a science, picking a lab assistant, but not an exact one. I always wished them well and gave them positive recommendations before moving on. But I wasn't looking for a new assistant at the time either. I was on a break and just enjoying being alone for a bit. I was going to see what happened and not rush back into things. I wanted to take a little extra science time for just me. Of course, not having a lab assistant did make preparations to go almost all the way to the North Pole using multiple and possibly variable methods of transportation a little more difficult, but, so be it. I would be doing my own packing, so I packed the usual cold weather clothes, satellite phone, backup GPS system, my portable suitcase lab, well, that's all I could fit, and of course wolfsbane because, you never know. I was soon on my way and would need to stop in Longyearbyen before figuring out how to get to Christmastown from there. Now, as you remember, Longyearbyen, or Longyear Town, is the world's northernmost settlement with a population greater than 1,000 and the largest inhabited area of Svalbard, Norway. Again, of course, not including Christmastown. It stretches along the foot of the left bank of the Longyear Valley and on the shore of the Adventfjorden, the short estuary leading into Isfjorden on the west coast of Spitsbergen, the island's broadest inlet. As of 2002, Longyearbyen's community council became an official Norwegian municipality. It is the seat of the governor of Svalbard. Now, known as Longyear City until 1926, the town was actually established by and named after an American, John Munro Longyear, whose Arctic Coal Company started coal mining there in 1906. Now, historically, Longyearbyen was a company town, but most mining operations moved to Svea during the 1990s, and production ceased in 2017 due to immense financial losses due to market conditions. Meanwhile, the town has seen a large increase in tourism and research. This includes the arrival of institutions such as the University Center in Svalbard, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, and Svalbard Satellite Station. Svalbard Airport, Svalbard Church, and the Svalbard Butikken department store all serve the community and have contributed to its growth. Now, as I expected, it did take a couple of days door to door, but I finally landed at the small Svalbard airport and had to assess my next move. Luckily, the weather was cooperating, and there were no storms predicted for the next few days. However, I soon found out that one helicopter to Christmastown was being repaired unexpectedly. I didn't have time to wait around for the repairs to be completed, so I would have to take my custom snowmobile I had shipped there in advance, just in case. As you know, I always like to be prepared, and it paid off. But I was also tired and jet-lagged, so I would stay at a hotel and get a traditional Longyearbyen dinner that night. I ate in a restaurant in an old mining warehouse, which was really quite impressive. They converted it really nicely. Now, the menu had the classics like reindeer, seal, and, every time I'm there, I think about being a little adventurous, but I always play it safe, and I just went for the Arctic char as usual. As I ate, I looked out the window. I was there during the long polar night, so it would be dark out, but there were no storms, and the lights of the town twinkled gently in the darkness, giving a calm, festive holiday feel. It was a warm-up to what I would experience in Christmastown. After dinner, I took a nice walk around the town. Well, it was cold, of course, but pleasant. The snow crunching under my feet as I looked at the Christmas lights hung up around the town. I watched my breath cool as I breathed out and felt the cold air blow gently all around me. Soon it was time to check into the hotel, and when I got to my room, I'll be honest, I fell asleep almost immediately. Now, the next day was bright and sunny. Well, it would have been if it were April. No, it was still dark during polar night, but technically, it was indeed early in the morning, and I was ready for my snowmobile trip to Christmastown. The custom snowmobile was all gassed up, and I did a final inspection to make sure everything was working, including the heater, before I headed out. I would need to traverse about 100 miles to get there. Soon I was off, and it would be quite easy to get lost without my GPS and backup systems. Everything was working fine, plus, there were no turns, it was just dark. I just had to keep going north. You could probably do it with a compass. But it would still take a few hours, even with the speed of my custom snowmobile. I thought I heard the occasional polar bear, probably wondering what that loud machine was whizzing by. I also kept an eye out for true emperor penguins. As you know, my first encounter with them was with Professor Sampson when I was a young science apprentice, and I knew they could be troublemakers and appear unexpectedly. After another hour or so, I soon arrived at Christmastown without incident. No issues with bears or penguins, and for that, I was grateful. Well, sure, I was a little cold, but the snowmobile custom heater did a fine job. But I certainly wouldn't turn down a mug of hot apple cider, that's for sure. Mayor Crinkle greeted me at the gate and bid me with a flourish, "Welcome to Christmastown." You know, I never get tired of that initial moment of entering Christmastown, especially during the holiday season. You feel the warmth immediately, not just because the town is built on hot springs. People were in the holiday spirit even more so than usual, and shoppers waved to me as they walked past, laden with colorfully wrapped packages. Children and dogs played in the snow as twinkling lights adorned every building. Christmas music played softly in the background as an accompaniment to the children's joy and laughter as they wondered what their parents and grandparents were getting them for Christmas. The mayor had his assistant park my snowmobile and bring my things to the Christmastown Hotel. He said he knew I was probably tired, but asked if I wouldn't mind taking a look right away, as they were all a bit worried about what was going on. Although it certainly didn't look like it from the joyful attitude and festivities of the entire town. We took an old-timey car, a Packard Brewster to be precise, full of 1930s charm. It looked like a replica, but Mayor Crinkle assured me it was an original, just restored. They loved the classics in Christmastown, of course, and the driver offered me a steaming mug of hot apple cider, which I accepted gratefully. We soon arrived on the other side of town, and things were just as festive as the first side of town. Well, until we got near the Christmastown Toy Store, where there was festive red and green caution tape put there by Constable Dan so no one would get hurt. No one was in the toy store, and it looked closed. Now, I don't want to say abandoned, as everything seemed like it was in great shape, just empty. But there was one young man in front of the caution tape taking notes. Mayor Crinkle said to him, "Bradley, I told you to go home to your family. Don't worry, we've brought in an expert." Bradley turned around and looked straight at me. "Professor Atwood, I presume?" I smiled and answered yes, and added, "Who might you be?" The young man introduced himself, said his name was Bradley, even though I already knew that because Mayor Crinkle had already addressed him, and said he had just finished Advanced Science College. He had been approached by numerous science corporations and science cabals trying to recruit him, but he had apparently turned them all down as he wanted to come back to Christmastown, help out in his local hometown wherever he could, and then figure out his future from there. I instantly liked Bradley, as you can imagine. I turned to Mayor Crinkle and asked him what was going on. I was here, and the toy store was clearly closed. What was the problem? Mayor Crinkle said there were many strange goings-on, from strange sounds to things appearing and disappearing in the store, and something that felt like a localized earthquake, which was all upsetting the shoppers. He said I should have a look for myself. All three of us began walking towards the front door as Mayor Crinkle fumbled with the store keys. I stopped for a moment, turned to Bradley, and asked him, "What do you think is going on?" Bradley stopped for a moment, apparently surprised to be asked. Now, I experienced that same thing when I was a young scientist as well, often with Professor Sampson. Bradley looked nervously at his notebook and said at first he thought it was a geothermal phenomenon, but he hesitated and then said, "That didn't explain the sounds." Sounds? What sounds? And then I heard them for myself, and we weren't even inside the toy store yet. It sounded like a low growl, but not like an angry growl, more like a distressed, like, what's going on type of growl, by a large animal who may be uncertain about something. But then it was followed by another more angry and frustrated growl, so I had to admit, I really didn't know what I was hearing either. But I was intrigued. We entered the toy store, and it immediately felt warm, but that's not what I noticed first. Even with no shoppers, the store was magnificent. All types of toys stacked the shelves, from dolls to board games, bikes to model trains. I was a bit melancholy that whatever was happening was preventing the rest of the town from enjoying this remarkable store. There's just something about toy stores, and I know, sadly, they are becoming fewer and fewer, but when you see one like this, you realize that the joy and happiness they bring should be a staple in every town, large or small, especially during the holiday season. But let me tell you a little bit about toy stores. The first toy store was founded in 1760 by William Hamley in London under the name of Noah's Ark, later renamed to Hamley's. Set over 7 floors, a Hamley's branch at 200 Regent Street in the West End of London opened in 1881. Now, the famous toy store in New York City, FAO Schwarz, was founded under the name Schwarz Toy Bazaar. It was founded in 1862 by the German immigrant Friedrich August Otto Schwarz. The former largest toy retailer in the United States, Toys R Us, started business in 1948 by Charles Lazarus, a veteran of World War II. In 2015, FAO Schwarz closed and did not open until after Toys R Us went bankrupt in 2018. Now, interestingly, families have missed this brand, and it is popping up again in many locations in malls and department stores, which is better than nothing, I suppose. At least there's that. Now, founded in 1760, Hamley's flagship toy store has been based on Regent Street, London, since 1881, and it's listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's oldest toy shop. Now, there are other types of toy stores too, some smaller than the large toy stores of old. FAO Schwarz, famous American brand and store, of course, you have that. That's probably one of the bigger ones. But then you have the Lego store, which is the official store for, Legos. Build-A-Bear Workshop, they specialize in making your own stuffed animals, not just bears, interestingly. Now today, toy stores face competition from the online toy market. As a result, many large toy retailers have been rendered bankrupt, sadly. However, toy stores that lean into the visit to the toy store as a fun community event increase in-store interactivity and have been more successful in maintaining business. Another model many stores have adopted is an online alternative, specifically for the individual retailer. And that's really been the point all along. It's not just about toys. It has to be about the fun of going to a toy store to pick them out. I remember going to a toy store as a kid. We had one called Kitty City, which was also very fun, and it was an event every time I got to go. But I remember taking my own kids to the toy store as well, and seeing their faces just light up as they explored all the different aisles full of board games, pirate ships, stuffed animals, and action figures. This is something clearly the Christmastown Toy Store understood, as there was also a large circular slide right in the middle of the store, which looked quite lonely without joyful children sliding down it. I once again heard the confused growling, which in turn confused, all 3 of us. But it was followed by a rumbling, filled with a flash of warmth in the air, and it knocked some Legos off a shelf. And then it all subsided just as quickly as it had arrived. I stole a glance at Bradley, who not only showed no sign of fear, but was scribbling notes in his notebook. I took a minute to look at all the toys on the shelves. This toy store had everything from crying dolls to superhero playsets. I needed to do everything I could to get it back open. So let's talk a moment about the toys themselves. A toy or plaything is an object that is used, primarily to provide entertainment. Simple examples include toy blocks, board games, and dolls. Toys are often designed for use by children, although many are designed specifically for adults and for pets. Toys can provide utilitarian benefits, including physical exercise, cultural awareness, or academic education. Additionally, utilitarian objects, especially those which are no longer needed for their original purpose, can be used as toys. Examples include children building a fort with empty cereal boxes and tissue paper spools, or a toddler playing with a broken TV remote control. The term toy can also be used to refer to utilitarian objects purchased for enjoyment rather than for need, or for expensive necessities for which a large fraction of the cost represents its ability to provide enjoyment to the owner, such as luxury cars, high-end motorcycles, gaming computers, and flagship smartphones. Playing with toys can be an enjoyable way of training young children for life experiences. Different materials like wood, clay, paper, and plastic are used to make toys. Newer forms of toys include interactive digital entertainment, that's a fancy way of saying video games, and smart toys. Some toys are produced primarily as collector's items and are intended for display only. Now, I've said this before, I don't really see the point of that, but Bradley does. And he has a whole collection of vintage Star Wars figures still in their original boxes. Anyway, the origin of toys is prehistoric. Dolls representing infants, animals, and soldiers, as well as representations of tools used by adults, are readily found at archaeological sites. Now, the origin of the word toy is unknown, but it is believed that it was first used in the 14th century. The oldest known doll toy is thought to be 4,000 years old. Now, playing with toys is an important part of aging. Younger children use toys to discover their identity, help with cognition, learn cause and effect, explore relationships, become stronger physically, and practice skills needed in adulthood. Adults on occasion use toys to form and strengthen social bonds, teach, help in therapy, and to remember and reinforce lessons from their youth. Now, I think this is an important point to make as we wind down the year. While it's easy to get lost in the adult responsibilities, the sorrow, and the hardships, don't forget that childhood wonder that you had when you were younger. It's still there inside you, possibly sleeping, but it's still there. Let them out sometime, and let them play. You're never too old to get out there and play a little frisbee or put a Lord of the Rings Lego set together. You've heard the saying, well, possibly directly to you, that you're not a kid anymore. Now, that's only partially true. What is really happening is that your kid isn't in charge anymore. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, as if they were, you'd be up all night riding a skateboard and eating pixie sticks. But the point is, your inner child is still there and needs to come out every once in a while. And if you can find a toy store, all the better. And yes, I will be finishing the story of how I met Bradley and how together we solved the mystery of the Christmastown Toy Store next time. But I want to take another moment to wish you and your family Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I wish you all the best, adventurers. Good night.
The Quiet Journeys of Professor Atwood was created, written, and performed by Chris Mancini and produced by White Cat Entertainment. It is a work of fiction. Maybe. Music and sound design by Ron Tansky at rontanskymusic.com. For more info and merchandise, including t-shirts, mugs, and blankets, go to whitecatentertainment.com.